Nina Carter's car crawled slowly along a deserted road. The cold wind after the rain whispered through the trees like soft hisses. Ahead, a lake appeared, Bluven Lake. The locals called it Whispering Lake. An old, broken sign swung loosely near the shore. Beware. She never left. Nina glanced toward the lake through the window. The water was still, too still. As if something, or someone, was looking up from beneath. The house was enormous, yet something felt unnatural in the silence. When Nina walked on the wooden floor, it felt like someone else was walking right behind her. That first night, as Nina lay in bed, a scratching sound came from inside the walls. She ignored it at first. Maybe mice, she thought. But the noises grew louder each night. And now the walls themselves seemed to breathe. Zach, the boy who often rode his bicycle outside, came to her door one afternoon. "You shouldn't stay here," he said, blank-faced. "This house doesn't like people, it likes being alone." Nina blinked, confused. Who likes being alone? Zach pointed silently toward the wall, and left. That night, Nina heard a woman crying inside the walls. Uncontrollable sobs. "Let me out, please, forgive me." Terrified, Nina didn't run. She placed her hand against the wall. Cold, wet, as if a hand from inside was touching hers. Mrs. Eleanor, the village librarian, who knew the house's history, told Nina. In 1923, a woman named Isabel Thornhill lived in that house. Her husband had her sealed alive inside the walls. Why? Nina asked. She couldn't bear children. And when she tried to run, he punished her. But Isabel's soul never left. She's still waiting. Nina discovered a hidden door beneath the house, a forgotten basement. Inside, in the crumbling brick, were human remains. And a diary. Isabel's. The pages were stained in blood. On the last page, written in shaky letters. "He killed me, but my sobs live in these walls now. And I'm no longer just Isabel." One night, instead of sound, Nina saw eyes in the wall. Red. Crying. Watching. "Nina, you're in my place now." The wall cracked open. Plaster fell. And Isabel's twisted spirit crawled out. Her face half burned, half decayed. She began dragging herself toward Nina. Flashback. Isabel was starved for days by her husband. Neighbors heard her screams but did nothing. Each night, she tried to claw her way out of the wall, but it was too thick. Eventually, her breath grew faint. "There was nothing in my belly, but I still had hope. They took even that from me." Isabel began appearing in Nina's dreams each night. And Nina began to feel everything Isabel once felt. Suffocation. Darkness. Pain. One morning, Nina woke up with pain in her veins. As if something inside the wall had been pulling her from within. "You're too late now," Zach said, standing at her door. "She's not just in the walls anymore. She's inside you." Zach's eyes were no longer normal. They looked ancient. Tired. Terrifying. 3:17 a.m. The power went out. Strong winds howled outside. The window panes rattled like they might shatter any second. Nina moved through the hallway, holding a candle. And then, a soft whisper began emerging from the wall behind her. "You are my place now, you are my body." Nina turned around. The candle blew out. The darkness was so thick, it felt like she was choking on it. And then, a hand came out of the wall. Rotting. Covered in blood. As if someone had ripped through from the other side. Nina screamed, but the sound was swallowed, like something in the darkness had gripped her throat. The next morning, Nina decided to return to the basement. Because what she saw last night wasn't a dream. She went down the stairs. The smell hit her, something rotten, something damp. As if a fresh corpse had been hidden just moments ago. Near the wall was another wooden cabinet. She pulled it aside. Behind it, another door. She opened it. A strange room lay beyond. Old bloodstains were splattered on the walls. And in the center, a wooden chair, still bound by rusted chains. And there, a body. Just bones now, but still marked with fresh blood. As if someone, or something, was still hurting it. Nina ran to Eleanor. That body, it wasn't Isabel, Eleanor whispered, trembling. Isabel didn't die alone. Someone else was buried in the wall with her. Nina froze. Who? Her unborn child. The one who never entered this world. But Isabel didn't want to lose him. And now they are together. That night, as Nina lay in bed, she felt it. The wall was watching her. She got up and looked closely. And yes, there were eyes. A pair of deep, black eyes peering out from a crack in the wall. And then, a small child emerged, half burnt, but alive. Its eyes pitch black. Its mouth let out a shrill, broken whistle. Mom says you're my new mommy now. Nina shut the door, shaking. But the child had already vanished. Melted back into the wall like smoke. The next day, Zach returned. But this time, his eyes were entirely black. You think Isabel is alone? He said coldly. What do you mean? Nina asked. I was part of this house too. I was Isabel's son. The first one. Nina felt her blood turn cold. But, Eleanor said Isabel's baby never died. Zach nodded. He didn't. I'm still here. And I don't want anyone else taking our place. He smiled. But it wasn't innocent. It was cruel. And ice cold. Nina found an old map in Eleanor's books. It showed something terrifying. This house had a mirror dimension. A world inside the walls. A place where Isabel's spirit and her child now lived. She found the oldest part of the wall. Behind the study room. She picked up a hammer. As soon as she struck the first brick, a hand grabbed her wrist from inside. She was being pulled in. Just before she disappeared, she saw Isabel standing in the darkness, blood flowing from her eyes. And beside her, a child like Zach. But with no face. Only a deep, black hole where it should have been. Nina's thoughts were no longer her own. She had started talking to herself at night. You are not Nina anymore, you are Isabel. Stop writing, it's time to finish our story. Come into the wall, we're all waiting for you. Her body began to bruise. Blue marks, like chains binding her. But the chains were invisible. They were in her mind. In the heartbeat of the walls. Eleanor came to the house one last time. If you go in, she said, you'll never come out. Isabel needs a new body. And Zach, he needs a new name. Trembling, Nina asked, has anyone ever made it out of this house alive? Eleanor lowered her head, and whispered, only bodies come out. Never the people. A deep psychological and supernatural twist begins here. 2:59 a.m. Nina was in her room. She couldn't sleep. From the walls, she could now not only hear sounds, but feel the warmth of someone's breath. As if someone was standing very close, inside the wall. And then, the walls started fluttering. It felt like a snake was shedding its skin behind the wall. But the sound was heavier, wetter. SHRKKK SHRKKK SHRKKK. Chunks of flesh began falling out from the wall. A horrifying sight unfolded before Nina. The wall was splitting open. And crawling out of it was a half-dead girl. Her body had nails hammered into it, and one arm was twisted unnaturally. You came to take my place. Her face didn't turn. It opened, as if sliced in two, but still alive. Nina fainted. When Nina regained consciousness, she found herself in Eleanor's house. But something had changed. There was an old photo hanging on the wall, Eleanor and Isabel together, like sisters. Nina stared at Eleanor. Why didn't you tell me you were Isabel's sister? Eleanor's eyes welled up. Because I couldn't save her. When Isabel was pregnant, I thought she was crazy. She used to say the baby inside her talks to the walls. And when the baby was born, it wasn't human. It had no eyes. Just black holes. Isabel's mind broke. And then she sealed herself inside the wall, with that baby. Nina was stunned. Now Nina's body had started to change. Blood marks were forming on her back, like nails had scratched her from the inside. In her dreams, Isabel would call her. Come, my child, you are my heir now. One night, Nina suddenly stood up from her bed. Her feet began to move on their own toward the basement. She was fully conscious, but the body was no longer hers. In the basement, she began removing bricks from the wall one by one, and the room opened again. But this time, Isabel wasn't alone. In the middle of the room was a wooden platform. On it sat Isabel's rotting body. In front of it, a new baby cradle. Something was moving inside, covered by a black cloth. Isabel said, Zach is grown now, he needs a new mother. And a new mother must leave her old body behind. Nina saw. On the platform was an old mirror. And in that mirror, her face was slowly turning into Isabel's. No, I will not perform any ritual. Isabel screamed. Your will means nothing, you are ours now. Just then, Eleanor appeared. In her hand, the same old book. Nina, say it out loud. This body is mine. Trembling, Nina said, this body is mine. Isabel's spirit began to retreat. But Zach, now a terrifying, fleshy shadow, lunged toward Nina. Zach now looked like a 10-year-old boy. But his skin was metallic black, his eyes completely white. And from his mouth came only one word. Mom, mom, mom. He was trying to enter Nina. Through her skin, through her eyes. Eleanor read one last chant from the book. Who seeks to live beyond flesh, shall be burned by truth. Zach screamed. A horrifying scream that echoed across the basement. The room began to shake. The walls began to crack. And Isabel's spirit turned into black smoke and scattered into the air. But Zach remained standing, smiling. Nina was now outside the house with Eleanor. But when she looked at her wrist, there was an imprint of a child's hand. And it began to move slowly. As if Zach was now hiding inside it. He hasn't gone, Eleanor said. He's just changed bodies. Nina's eyes opened by themselves in the middle of the night. The wall in her room, the same wall where Eleanor had once heard intermittent scratching sounds, was now breathing. Yes, the wall was inflating and deflating, as if something alive was inside it. Nina quietly got off the bed. She placed her hand on the wall. It was warm. Her palm slightly sank into it. Who's there? Nina's voice trembled. The wall responded, but in someone else's voice. It's you, Nina, I'm inside you now. Nina stepped back. Something was moving in her stomach. It felt like something injured and rough was crawling under her ribs. Then suddenly, blood started seeping from the wall. And within the blood, a face emerged, Margot. Margot, whom Nina had seen dead in the basement with her own eyes, was now merged into the wall. You didn't save me, Nina. Now I will live inside you. Until you two become a wall. The next day, Nina was looking at herself in the bathroom mirror. The face was hers, but the eyes belonged to someone else. Black, hollow, and completely still. Why are you looking at yourself now? You are no longer alone inside you. The voice didn't come from behind her, it came from inside the mirror. She stepped back in fear. But the other, Nina in the mirror smiled and grabbed her. Nina screamed. And when she looked again, the mirror lay shattered on the floor. Her hand was cut. And on the sharp edge of the glass, Margot's name was written. When Eleanor found out about all this, she trembled with fear. Nina, this house was never meant for you. What do you mean? Eleanor, with a trembling voice, said. Greater than, this house was built in 1967 for a girl, her name was Annalise. She was mentally ill and used to talk to the walls. Her parents hid her inside the walls of this house, so she would remain cut off from the world. What? She didn't die in the walls, Nina, she was buried alive. And now, every time someone feels lonely, or drowns in guilt, Annalise starts living inside that person. Eleanor and Nina went into the basement. There, they found a hidden door, covered in marks of scratched-off nails all around. When the door opened, they found a strange room. It had no corners. Everything was made of curved, rounded walls. And on every wall was written, Greater than, let me out. I'm still awake. Small windows were embedded in the walls, through which eyes were watching them. In one window, Eleanor saw Annalise, alive, but now a part of the wall. Let me out. Annalise's eyes were human, but her body was fused into the wall. That night, Nina had a dream. She wasn't sleeping in her bed, but inside the wall. Around her was soft flesh, walls made of skin. And in every wall, a face was embedded, Margot, Eleanor, Clara, and even her mother. Annalise's voice echoed. Greater than, once you're inside the wall, you can never be human again. And now Nina, it's your turn. When Nina woke up in the morning, Eleanor was not in the room. She opened the basement door, and saw that Eleanor's eyes were wide open, her mouth agape, and her body was half absorbed into the wall. Nina tried to run, but the doors shut by themselves. Then from the same wall came a voice, Eleanor's, but distorted. Greater than, I told you, this house wasn't made for you. But now, you were made for this house. Nina found a letter in the oldest part of the house. It was written in dried blood. The handwriting was Annalise's. Greater than, I was hidden inside the walls. But now my soul merges with anyone who is drowning in loneliness, who has betrayed someone, or who has heard the voices in the wall. Now it's your turn, Nina. I will live inside you. And the walls, through you, will reach others. Nina walked into the bathroom with that letter still in her hand. Her hands were still trembling. She looked into the mirror. But this time, what she saw wasn't her reflection. There was a girl standing in the mirror. Half-burnt face, red eyes, lips sewn shut. She was only moving her mouth, but the sound came from inside the mirror. Greater than, don't say my name, please, if you do, I'll wake up completely. Nina turned around. No one was there. But then, someone whispered right next to her ear. Greater than, say it once, say my name. Nina froze. She tried to open the bathroom door. But the door had rotted. Instead of wood, it was now flesh. Terrified, Nina dug out Eleanor's old phone. There was one unheard voicemail, timestamped last week. She played it. It wasn't Eleanor's voice, but it was speaking like Eleanor. If you're hearing this, Nina, then I'm not Eleanor anymore. I saw it. Behind the walls, it's not just Annalise. There was something else behind her. A woman who made Annalise what she is now. Never say her name. Her name is static noise. Suddenly, blood began dripping from the phone. Only one word was glowing on the screen. Come in. Nina went down to the basement and opened another secret passage between the walls. It was very narrow and pitch dark. She had to crawl between the walls. Crawling through, she reached a hidden chamber. Burnt dolls were hanging everywhere. Each doll had a name written on it. Clara, Margot, Eleanor, Nina, and between the walls was an old, framed photo. A woman dressed in 1930s clothing, holding a hammer, and behind her in the wall, a crying little girl, Annalise. Below the photo, it read, "Greater than, Amara Winsley, the architect of silence." Nina picked up the photo. As soon as she touched it, the whole room started shaking. The walls breathing faster, suffocating, screams. Then she began seeing Amara's backstory, inside her eyes. Amara Winsley was an architect for a church who, not by mistake, but intentionally designed houses so people could be buried inside them. She made orphan children disappear, and sealed every single one alive inside the living walls of her houses. Annalise was her last victim. But Annalise's spirit escaped and returned into the walls. Nina understood. Annalise was only the victim. But the real demon was Amara. The house was completely silent now. With every step Nina took, the floor groaned, the walls hissed, and the ceiling laughed. Everything was alive. She found that old book in the library, the one that mentioned Amara. The book opened by itself and stopped at one specific line. Whoever says her name 3 times, she shall live inside their body. Nina shut her mouth tight. But then a voice came from the wall. Greater than, say it, Nina or Eleanor will never come back. Tears rolled down Nina's eyes. And just as she whispered, Amara, Amara, before she could say it the 3rd time, the door exploded. Amara was now standing there. Not a girl anymore. A walking corpse. A woman made of walls and flesh. Amara said, "Greater than, I can return Eleanor to you, Clara too. But you must give me one thing." "What?" "Your voice forever." Nina remembered. Annalise's lips were sewn shut too. She realized, if she said yes, she would become a wall herself. But Eleanor would come back to life. Nina stood silently, Amara's decayed body staring deep into her eyes. The deal had been made. "Give me your voice, and I'll return Eleanor." From between the walls, Eleanor's groaning voice echoed. "Nina, help me, don't let her win." Nina stood at a crossroads. Either give up her voice to free Eleanor, or fight Amara, that demonic force who had devoured every soul so far. But then, something clicked in Nina's mind. That sketchbook of Annalise's kept in the corner of the basement. Nina ran back to the basement. She flipped through the sketchbook, and behind one drawing, there was a hidden note. In a crooked, childlike handwriting, it read, "Amara is scared of me because I'm not alone. Whenever I cried, the other children hidden in the walls sang for me. If all their voices come together, she gets scared. Don't give me a voice, give me companions." Tears welled up in Nina's eyes. Annalise was never a monster, she never was. The real monster was Amara. And the other souls trapped in the walls were still waiting for freedom. Nina picked up Eleanor's old recordings. Among them was a lullaby Eleanor used to sing when she was scared. Musical note, close your eyes, don't be scared. I'm right here, I always cared. Musical note. Nina played it across the whole house. That voice echoed through the walls like waves. Then, slowly, the walls began to shake. Hands started reaching out of children, of women, of elders. Each soul was coming out, one by one. Annalise at the front. Now her face was calm, her eyes glowing. Amara came out of the wall, her skin now melting. She screamed, "Greater than, don't play those voices. They're not mine." Annalise now stood beside Nina, for the first time in human form, smiling. She said, "Greater than, you gave us a voice, Nina, now it's our turn." Hundreds of souls marched toward Amara, each one holding a hammer, a brick, a story. Amara kept screaming, but no voice came out of her now. A blinding light exploded, and every wall in the house cracked all at once. It was morning. Every brick of the house had collapsed. Nina sat in the dirt, Eleanor unconscious in her lap, but alive. Clara and Margot were also there. Somehow, they had made it back too. Annalise was nowhere to be seen. But her sketchbook lay open beside Nina. Now, it had a new drawing. Annalise and Nina sitting in a garden, holding flowers. Below it was written, "You freed us. Now it's your turn to live." 6 months later, Nina, Eleanor, Clara, and Margot started living in a new, small town. A wooden house. The walls were thin, but the hearts were big. Sometimes, at night, a lullaby could be heard in the breeze. Musical note, close your eyes, don't be scared, musical note. But no one felt fear anymore. Annalise had now become just a memory. A soul who was never a monster. But the path to liberation. The camera slowly pulls away from the house. On an old wall, there's still a faint mark, as if someone had clawed at it. Below it, a name is etched. Amara Winsley. And then, a voice whispers. You may break the walls, but some echoes always remain. But for now, Nina is free. And so are the others.